Welcome everybody to our Soul Path Wisdom Community Friday class. Today we're going to explore the Gemini full moon. It was yesterday. However, since time doesn't really exist and we're all operating in this illusion, I feel that it is perfectly reasonable to do the work the next day and have it be all part of this energetic framework that we're in. And I think it's really important that we understand this full moon, especially because as a full moon sits at a place of culmination and completion, it's a step that happens before a new moon. And the new moon coming up on December 19th is a particularly powerful one because it connects us back to the eclipse that was a solar eclipse in late degrees of Virgo a few months ago. So if you've been following along and you know the basics of the astrology, one thing you might know is that we're always talking about eclipses triggering soul-centered action that gets kind of a turning point 3 months later and then gets the deeper activation 3 months after that when you have matching eclipses. So the December moon season, not eclipses, but it's a moon season with new moon and full moon. It will generally have a lot to do with new information and ideas that come to you about whatever was activated 3 months before. And so I really did want us to take the time to feel this moon's energy and to stop and take stock in a way, to slow down enough to feel what is emerging within you, even if it's not clear yet. And I certainly believe that it's pretty unlikely that most of us have a lot of clarity about our lives, about where we're going. I think we're all in this interesting phase where we're saying, I need change, I want change, but what am I going to do? The world is changing. It's like a earthquake rumbling beneath our feet. A volcano that looks like it's going to erupt, and we don't know which way the lava flow is going to go. So we have these ideas about the world and what comes next and what we want to have next in our own life. But we're having to kind of tread water for a while and only gently move things forward. And that can be particularly challenging when we're in that framework around the turn of the new year, because our calendar mentality has us looking at newness and change and marking time by January 1st. Even though we know the Aries ingress is probably more significant, and we have our own personal new year where the sun crosses our ascendant every year. There's lots of times that we can take stock. But this one I think is super important. And I'm going to take you to the slide of the moon itself. And one of the reasons that I feel it's so important is you can see that there is this green cross. This is showing the exact square of this full moon, which is 13 degrees and 3 minutes, moon in Gemini. So it's a full moon in Gemini. And Sagittarius is where the sun sits. And then we see the lunar nodes that are 13 degrees and 43 minutes. And since they move backwards, they're very soon moving to be exact to the location of the full moon. The 13 degrees and 3 minutes of the full moon that was yesterday, the nodes will move backwards and square the point exactly. And the point is holding a particular energy. So we're very much in this vibration where the square to the lunar nodes, as I think many of you realize, is considered in evolutionary astrology a skip step or an integrative step. The bendings of the nodes, it's called. And this is where there's a certain tension and stress, but is also a message to us that says this is what you need to activate in order to balance the lunar nodes. So the lunar nodes, now they may just be background noise in your chart, right? You may not have any planets or angles at 13, 14 degrees. And therefore, it's just like kind of background healing that you're getting. Or it may be really strong and it may be on your chart in a very significant place, as this whole construct is in mine. And I'm thinking, toward the end that maybe I'll share my chart as the example, or one of the examples that we look at today. The the full moon already is a place of evaluation, culmination, completion, looking at what you have accomplished on a positive side in the sign of Gemini, how you might have been learning something, teaching something, classifying data, understanding in a broad, open-minded perspective things you need to know about. Maybe letting go of places that you are too much on the surface. The shadow point of a Gemini can be being a little bit glib. And we're going to go into all of these with slides in a moment to really talk about these signs. But just as the overall framework, we're kind of letting go of negative Gemini and focusing on Sun in Sagittarius. It's like the light is happening, the power, the intensity has to do with what is the meaning of life for you personally. Where are you going? So that you are, fully in alignment with your higher soul's purpose. And then we also have a similar kind of dynamic with lunar nodes, where we are letting go of the negative of the Virgo, worry, anxiety, overthinking, being caught in the minutia, and but activating and honoring all of the problem solving and the skillfulness and the devotion to detail, that and using that to move up into the higher frequency of Pisces, where we can be spiritual, compassionate, intuitive, in our highest frequency energies, very connected to soul level purpose. So we've got the Pisces soul level purpose, which can be so much more mystical in a way, creative, spiritual, watery, emotionally attuned, and Sagittarian spiritual energy, which is I have a framework, I have a belief and a philosophy, and I'm living up to it. I have integrity in what I believe in. And you can also see with the full moon that it's a stellium with Venus and Mars. So we know that relationships and how we're moving forward, and are we getting our needs met, and are we, feeling like we can be fully in our fire, that this is an important aspect of this full moon, that when we're thinking about what meaning and truth is for us, we might be evaluating the people that we live with, our friends, the people we work with. So, are our relationships in alignment with our purpose? Can be a sub aspect to this. And on other sub aspect levels, I would say that the transformation triangle of Uranus in Taurus now, but it was edging into Gemini, same sign as the full moon, in a trine to Pluto in Aquarius, and in its square, or I'm sorry, it's sextile to Saturn Neptune, they're same sign as the North Node. So what we're seeing here is that the bigger frequency that we are navigating, this sextile trine aspect between these four outer planets, is actually in place to some degree for about 3 full years. From this year, where it's been very aligned, especially when Saturn and Neptune were in Aries and Uranus had moved into Gemini. It was even, for a while very close to being, in signs with each other. But it is, this is a transformational vibration that's just kind of locking into our world and locking into each one of your charts. So bear in mind that this, also has a kind of a connection to the nodes in the moon just by sign. And so it's drawing you into that part of your chart. Now, full moons again represent culmination and a peak of your new moon intentions. Could have been your new moon intention 2 weeks ago, could have been a new moon intention a year ago. But one of the things that'll happen with a full moon is the unconscious can become conscious. So things that are below, that are hidden, intense feelings, they will come to the surface. And, we know that police departments around the country, I would imagine even around the world, are aware from statistics that there's more need for police patrols on full moons, and they work with that. I remember once my girlfriend and I had medical physical store way back in the day, and a young policeman came into the store to find out if we had an actual lunar calendar that he wanted to track and watch to see what was going on. So we release what no longer serves us in the full moon. And so just take a moment to think for yourself. Gemini. In what ways is Gemini operating in a superficial way in your life where you feel distracted, overly busy, on the surface of things, not really getting into the depth that would fulfill you? Maybe hanging around people that, the conversations are actually boring you. Watching movies or reading books that aren't really satisfying on a deeper spiritual or fulfillment level. And, in this evaluation, we don't want to be overly harsh and judgmental on ourselves, because I think sometimes we have to realize we can be so far in the other direction, busy, intense, too many things that have meaning that we need to just space out for a half an hour. But the important part is that you have consciousness about it. If you're going to waste an hour of your day because you just don't have the bandwidth to do something meaningful, you can't save the world on Tuesday, then, at least know that you're doing it. Have it be a choice that you take and you fully enjoy it. Instead of, I think what can often happen is we can find ourselves doing something and not really be enjoying it or appreciating it and feeling like it's a waste of time, and yet, we're doing it anyway. Now, of course, sun, your personal power, your self-image, your vitality, so wherever the sun is, it's shining light in that area of your chart. So you got to think about where is your natal sun and what is its highest expression, and where is the sun right now. And as you let it shine in that area of your chart, the energy extends back to your natal sun. It gets empowered, or if you let the energy dissipate, it's not helping at all. The moon represents the way we nurture and wish to be nurtured. It's really about our emotional security and our unconditional love. So same thing, we look at our natal moon and what it wants, how it is best developed, and where the moon is now, especially in this powerful full moon, and we can see how do they work together, and how can truly working with this moon in Gemini, how can it support the needs of your own emotional frequency, your emotional habit patterns? How can they be moved to a higher expression? How can the unconscious be made conscious in a way that works for you? So, full moon in Gemini, or Gemini in general, at its most evolved level, we are knowledgeable, curious, and adaptable. At an average level, we're just, interested, I would say still curious, communicative, we improvise, we can be flexible. And at the more shadowy level, we really do come into this superficiality, or complete ignorance, not interested in information. Where the sign of Gemini is, or the planet Mercury that's in charge of it, uh, we can't really say that it denotes intelligence, uh, but it's more the way our minds work. It tells us the quality on some level. And it also gives us, again, this guidance of what are we aspiring to. And wherever Gemini is, we're aspiring to being curious and bringing in more knowledge, and ultimately bringing in knowledge that is supportive and helpful to our soul's mission. While Sagittarius is also on the informational spectrum, but it asks us to seek truth and the meaning of life. So that's where Sagittarius in your chart is where you're doing a deep dive as a soul into that area of life. And if you have a planet in Sagittarius, that planet and its needs do so in a Sagittarian way, which means that that planet will operate from this place of seeking truth and meaning. Maybe that's connecting to religions, maybe it's connecting to different philosophies, maybe you become the teacher of a Sagittarian type subject matter. And average, Sagittarius is idealistic, hopeful, adventurous, worldly, international, generous, optimistic, can be, just the life of the party kind of energy. Whereas, like a bubble burst, right? Hopeful can go to hopeless. Expansive and generous can go to it's all about me. And definitely the seeking of truth and meaning can get very dogmatic and very preachy. So, that's the part that any planet in Sagittarius, we have to be mindful of. Now, the lunar nodes represent basically karma and dharma. The south node, your karmic experience is unresolved, habit pattern or two that get you in trouble because it's your comfort zone. You just do it over and over again. But if you can see the positive side of your south node as your gift to the world, and not just make the south node bad and north node good, then you will be in this framework toward the integration of the positive of both polarities. The north node can represent who or what was against you, and you can use that sign quality for medicine for this life, your dharma path, your goal state. And so when we have transits to the evolution, to the nodes, we are bringing evolutionary gifts. And the transiting nodes in our natal chart supports releasing habit patterns in that area. So your natal lunar nodes are telling you as a soul what qualities you're bringing in, what your weak spot is or your habit pattern, and the medicine and the pathway to evolution and what it ultimately looks like to bring it together. And so now we think about, okay, in the sky, they are helping your natal lunar nodes. And so this is where we can go to Virgo as the current south node, where the evolved level is to be humble, devoted, skillful, being of service, being efficient and effective, just getting the job done is so Virgo, quietly unassuming energy. At the average level, Virgo suggests being perfectionistic and analytical, perceptive, definitely a problem solver, being organized, doing purifications, discernment. And out of balance, the shadow of Virgo will be critical and picky and anxious and worried. And, so this is what we're all working with right now. And this started in January of 2025, goes through to the summer next year, 2026, where the nodes will move into Leo and Aquarius. And so we've got a good 6-7 months left where we get to work on the higher frequency of Virgo. Become devotional, be humble, be efficient, and do our very best to let go of the worry, which we got lots to be worried about right now, but we need to focus our attention into something skillful we can do to be part of the solution. And beautiful Pisces, this is where the North Node is. And we're drawn to being spiritual, holding a space of oneness and high love, mysticism, maybe at the more average level, being in our intuition, our imagination, being compassionate, very much being empathic, maybe a little naive you can be in too much Pisces. But ultimately, Pisces can devolve into self-doubt and addictions and dependency. Real overwhelm is what I see with Pisces, especially right now, with so much change in the world. And we've had so much Pisces energy given to us by Neptune being in Pisces since 2011. So if you have not stabilized and structured a spiritual practice for yourself over these last 2.5 years since Saturn entered Pisces to bring us the gift of discipline, structure, seriousness, it is time. You got a couple more months because we've got Saturn in Pisces still. This is December, January, and into the beginning of February. So this is the time to be very, very clear about embodying your Pisces energy, wherever that is in your chart, so that you can move forward with a certain level of spiritual groundedness, moving forward into this next phase of life where the Aquarian energy, the Saturn, Jupiter launch in 2020 in Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius for 20 years. This is going to move so fast that if you don't have a spiritual practice to ground and stabilize you, you are likely to feel very overwhelmed a lot of the time. Now, here again is a little bit about why I feel like it's very important that we pay a lot of attention to this full moon, because we're leading into the new moon on December 19th, which is at 5:44 p.m. Pacific time. It's at 28 degrees and 25 minutes. That's about 28.5 degrees of Sagittarius. And the solar eclipse in Virgo, this is a square to it. And you can also see that it's a huge stellium. We've got the new moon. It has Mars, Venus, and Mercury all attuned to it. They're working together. That is the 5 personal planets, all in alignment for that new moon. So knowing what you're letting go of, knowing what the big picture mission is super important at this point in time. You can see that You know, there was a square from the lowest degree planet in that stellium, which is Mercury. So Mercury, the mind thinking, are you collecting data and communicating in a way that is in alignment with your beliefs? And so that you can find this balance between service and devotion and surrendering and trusting. There's also a square from the later degrees in the new moon to the Saturn Neptune. Again, you know, what do you believe in? It's going to be time soon to start something new and stabilize at a different level. Now, some of you, when I'm talking about starting something new, you might be thinking, I'm writing a book, I'm doing a website, I'm starting a new job, I want to move somewhere. But some of you might be, I don't really know. I'm like, you know, my life is the same pretty much. I'm, you know, raising my family or I'm retired. But still, there's always something new going on internally and new ideas and new feelings. And there is something going on here to this new moon where Jupiter, planet of belief, truth, and meaning, and Uranus, the wake up call, they can operate together and help you have more understanding of what it is personally you are starting. So that's it for the lecture portion of this class. We'll move in a moment to for everybody who's here to look at some charts and to really get a sense of what this feels like and what this looks like when we're practical about it and we look at a chart. In the meantime, I'll remind you that I've got a bunch of classes starting in January and February, and consulting skills at Kepler College, and of course the big conferences coming up this year. And I hope to see many of you there. So let me stop the share and let's come into charts.